The end of the 2025 NBA regular season is almost here, and for a few players that may mark the end of their tenures with their current teams. Half of the teams will be gearing up for a playoff run, while the other half will dive immediately into their off-season game plans, and the plan for some groups is going to be to shake things up in a big way. Rumors are already swirling about some of the biggest names in the game potentially being available on the trade market this summer, and as a result of that, Bleacher Report has put together an article formulating trade proposals for each of them that they think could actually come about. So as always, we'll be going through each one, analyzing whether or not the trades make sense, why or why not each team involved would want to do it, and who benefits the most from it if it were to happen. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first proposal from the article that we'll be taking a look at is between the Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks, where the Mavericks receive Kevin Durant in exchange for Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Jaden Hardy, and 2 first-round picks. The Mavericks have been in the news for all of the worst reasons over the last few months, ever since they inexplicably traded away superstar Luka Doncic, and since then injuries have also plagued their squad after their intention was to try to win now, which by the way also doesn't make much sense, but that's not what we're here to discuss. Kyrie Irving's ACL tear is going to hold him out of most of next season too, which really puts a wrench in their plans to contend. So with a front office as bold as this one is, I absolutely would not put it past them to try their hand at yet another massive swing like this trade. Kevin Durant's tenure with the Suns has been filled with nothing but shortcomings and disappointments, and they seem destined to part ways this offseason. But if they do that, they need to have a clear vision of what will come next, and I'm not quite sure that this is a return that answers that question. Klay Thompson is still a very good shooter, but he's not the elite all-time great shooter that he once was, and his ability to impact the game in other ways is minimal at best at this point in his career, so having him as the cornerstone of this trade is already a questionable start. PJ Washington is a solid two-way forward that played a pivotal role in the Mavericks finals run last season, but doing this deal pretty much just delays the inevitable rebuild that the team would have to go through, because if they can't even make the playoffs with Kevin Durant, then a downgrade at his position and another washed up shooter that can't defend won't save them either, and they'll just be in for another season with the same outcome next year. I see why the Mavericks would do it, because KD and Anthony Davis would be a very strong duo to hold things together, and then when Kyrie Irving comes back from his injury eventually, contention could actually be in the cards, and they're desperate enough to take swings like this on another veteran star. But the Suns are probably the ones that turn this down, because not only does it accomplish nothing for them in the long run, but they would also probably be able to receive a better offer than this on the open market, so the Mavericks wouldn't even be the highest bidder. The next proposal from the article that we'll be taking a look at is between the Atlanta Hawks and the Memphis Grizzlies, and this one is a simple 1-for-1 swap of Trae Young for Ja Morant. I've been doing these trade review videos for quite a while now, and I can probably count on one hand the amount of times that I've seen 1-for-1 swaps of star players offered by the writers at Bleacher Report, and honestly, this might be the first time I've seen it, so coming across this one was definitely a shock. But let's actually think about things from the perspective of each team here and try to rationalize it. The Grizzlies right now are at a point where you can definitely see some smoke coming from their camp, and as they say, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. They just fired head coach Taylor Jenkins a few weeks ago, right before the playoffs start, out of nowhere, despite the team having one of the best records in the West and having finished with a top 2 seed in the conference twice in previous years under his lead, which baffled the NBA community greatly. And while the main reason given for it was the fact that they hadn't beaten a good team in months and the organization felt that they were slipping under his lead, there just has to be more to it than that. That's the kind of decision typically saved for the offseason after a team gets eliminated in disappointing fashion from the playoffs. You don't ever really change things this drastically right before that run even begins. Ja Morant has been in the news over the last few seasons for a lot of the wrong reasons to top it all off, having been suspended for his actions and then unfortunately suffering an injury that held him out for a while. This season, he's been having his worst season since 2021, and his immaturity is raising legitimate questions about whether or not he can actually lead a group at the highest level in the league, and the Grizzlies front office may just be getting fed up with his antics. From the Hawks' perspective, the team has gradually been retreating further and further down the standings over the last couple of seasons, and could feel like things are getting stale with Trae Young at the helm, or they could just want to fully focus on their youth movement and move Trae to a contender for that reason. Even with that being the case though, I hate this trade for the Hawks. The Hawks are finally starting to put together a lineup with high-level defenders around Trae Young who provide a ton of versatility, but they also desperately need Trae's playmaking prowess because without it, this would be a horrific offensive unit. Ja Morant is an electrifying athlete and a very solid point guard in his own right, but he is not nearly as good of a passer or shooter as Trae Young is, and the spacing on the Hawks would be abysmal replacing Trae with Ja. The Grizzlies hop on this trade so fast, but I just can't wrap my head around the idea of the Hawks embracing a trade for Trae Young only for it to be a downgrade at his position that contributes further to the roster's weaknesses and getting nothing else in return from it either. The next proposal from the article is between the Detroit Pistons and the New Orleans Pelicans, and in it the Pistons receive Zion Williamson in exchange for Tobias Harris, Ron Holland, Bobby Klintman, and a first-round pick. The Pistons are one of this season's darlings, as a young group finally emerging from the depths of a rebuild to locking in a playoff berth for the first time since 2019, and they are hungry for a whole lot more. With the core of this group set for years to come, the front office may see them as a team ready to take the next step soon, and that comes with finding Cade Cunningham a sidekick. Zion Williamson came into the NBA with more hype than we've seen in a very long time, and even though he is an incredible player when he's healthy, the problems come from the fact that he was expected to be a whole lot better, and that he's simply not healthy enough for it to matter. The Pelicans are stuck with a group that just is not good enough to compete in a loaded Western Conference right now, and they are a prime candidate to sell off some of their talent this offseason and shift towards a rebuild. So when they do, Zion will have a ton of suitors. I love the idea of Zion playing next to Cade Cunningham being able to benefit from Cade's elite court vision and passing instincts in the pick and roll. He would alleviate some of the pressure currently on Cade, who has the third highest usage rate in the NBA this season, and best of all, Zion's asking price probably won't be as high as it may have been in the past due to his health concerns, so attempting to buy low on a talent like that would absolutely be a risk worth taking for Detroit. For the Pelicans, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow, but I actually do think this is a reasonable return for them here as well. Ron Holland may not get consistent opportunities to shine on the Pistons right now as a rookie, but he is exactly the type of promising young talent that a group shifting towards a rebuild should be taking a swing on. Tobias Harris has proven he can be a solid locker room presence and veteran leader for a young group after the work that he has done with Detroit this season, and the first round pick is of course a necessary inclusion as well. The Pelicans may need to be swayed by a little bit more draft capital being offered to them here, but otherwise this is a scenario I could actually see play out. The next proposal from the article is between the Orlando Magic and the Charlotte Hornets, where the Magic receive LaMelo Ball in exchange for Anthony Black, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and 2 first-round picks. Zion Williamson gets a lot of flack for how much time he misses, as we discussed in the last segment, but LaMelo Ball is low-key in the same boat, and it's not talked about as much. Ball misses a significant portion of time almost every season due to unfortunate injury history as well, having played in just 231 of the Hornets' 410 games since he has been drafted, which is barely half. LaMelo Ball is another player who is obviously incredibly talented when healthy, with an All-Star nomination under his belt, but he hasn't proven he can lead any kind of winning basketball yet. He's rarely available, and his immaturity is starting to worry some Hornets executives, making them question if he's a good fit to be what they continue to build around moving forward. The Magic already have an established core that, at full strength, plays tough, hard-nosed basketball, making the playoffs last year, and this year will still be in the play-in tournament despite all of their injuries. The Magic are a dominant defensive team team in desperate need of more offensive firepower, playmaking, and overall creativity to liven up their offense, as they are currently the 27th ranked offense in the league, and that makes LaMelo Ball a perfect fit for what they need here. They have the pieces to cover up LaMelo's defensive struggles. He's an incredible passer with unlimited shooting range, which draws a ton of tension from defenses, which would thus make the lives of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner much easier, and he wouldn't have to be the #1 option on the Magic either, alleviating concerns about him being a legitimate franchise pillar. From the Magic's perspective, this is a home run, but the Hornets probably laugh at the idea of this trade. Anthony Black is just not enough to move the needle in a deal like this, unfortunately. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope doesn't really fit their timeline, and while the first-round picks are nice, they likely want better talent included in the deal if they ever were to decide to move on from LaMelo. And finally, the last proposal from the article that we'll be going over today is between the Sacramento Kings and the Brooklyn Nets, where the Nets received Domantas Sabonis in exchange for Nick Claxton, Maxwell Lewis, and 2 first-round picks. The Kings have been hovering in the purgatory of mediocrity for a while now, and things finally started to unravel when De'Aaron Fox got sick of it and eventually asked out this season. With Fox gone, the team needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask themselves what needs to be done in order to reset their trajectory, and an uncomfortable truth is that they are hard-capped on how good their defense can realistically ever be, with Domantas Sabonis anchoring things in the middle. Defense has always been the biggest drawback of this Kings core, so right off the bat, Nick Claxton can come in and improve things in that regard as a premier shot blocker and rebounder who brings a ton of energy on that end. Sabonis himself may end up wanting a change of scenery also anyway, so it could end up being to the benefit of everybody, but the Nets have a lot of work to do this summer if they want to actually make a trade like this worthwhile. Rumor has it that the Nets are ready to go star hunting this summer, with Giannis Antetokounmpo being their primary target, but even if they're not able to land Giannis, they have a ton of assets at their disposal to acquire top-end talent with. Sabonis is really only the kind of player I could see them going after if they also have a deal on the table for a second star too, because otherwise, adding Sabonis to the group of guys they have currently would pretty much just end up being a worse version of what the Kings currently are, and that solves nothing. For this trade, it's based on a lot of outside context coming into fruition, but it's not out of the question completely, so if everything falls into place, I kind of like it for both sides, but on its own, Sabonis to the Nets pretty much solves nothing, and I don't think that would be the only move capable of being made. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these proposed trades. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.